Chapter 6, Up on Boggan's Heights. Shout out to the Browns. Thank you. The two girls hurried out of the building, up the street towards Boggan Heights. The part of town that wore such a forbidding air on this kind of November afternoon. Drizzly, damp, and dismal. Well, at least, said Peggy gruffly, I never did call her a foreigner, make fun of her name. I never thought she had the sense to know we were making fun of her anyway. I thought she was too dumb. And gee, look how she can draw. I thought I could draw. Maddie could say nothing. All she hoped was that they would find Wanda. Just so she'd be able to tell her that they were sorry that they had all picked on her. And just to say how wonderful the whole school thought she was. And to please not move away, and everybody would be nice, and she and Peggy would fight anybody who was not nice. Maddie fell to imagining a story in which she and Peggy assailed any bully who might be going to pick on Wanda. Wanda Pentronsky on ski, somebody would yell, and she and Peggy would pounce on the guilty one. For a time, Maddie consoled herself with those thoughts. But they soon vanished, and again she felt unhappy and wished everything could be nice, the way it was before any of them had made fun of Wanda. Brr! Drab, cold, cheerless it was up here on Boggan's Heights. In the summertime, the woods, the sumac, and the ferns that grew along the brook on the side of the road were the lush and made this a beautiful walk on Sunday afternoons. But now it did not seem beautiful. The brook had shrunk to the merest trickle, and today's drizzle sharpened the outlines of the rusty tin cans, old shoes, and forlorn remnants of Big Black Bear umbrella in the bed of the brook. The two girls hurried on. They hoped to get to the top of the hill before dark. Otherwise, they were not certain they could find Wanda's house. At last, huffing and puffing, they rounded the top of the hill. The first house, the old rickety one, belonged to Old Man Svensson. Peggy and Maddie hurried past it almost tiptoeing. Somebody said that once Old Man Svensson had shot a man. Others said, nonsense, he's just an old good-for-nothing, wouldn't hurt a flea. But false or not, the girls breathed more freely as they rounded the corner. It was too cold and drizzly for Old Man Svensson to be in his customary chair tilted against the house, chewing and spitting tobacco juice. Even his dog was now nowhere in sight and had not barked at the girls wherever he might be. I think that's where the Pentroskys live, said Maddie, pointing to a little white house with lots of chicken coops outside of it. Wisp of old grass stuck up in the air along with a pathway, thin like wet kittens. The house in its sparse little yard looked shabby, but clean. It reminded Maddie of Wanda's one dress, her faded blue cotton dress, shabby but clean. There was not a sign of life about the house, except for a yellow cat, half-grown, crouching on the side of a small step close to the front door. It leaped timidly, it's an old vocab word, with a small cry halfway up a tree when the girls came into the yard. Peggy knocked firmly on the door, but there was no answer. She and Maddie went around to the backyard and knocked there. Still no answer. Wanda! Called Peggy. They listened sharply, but only a deep silence pressed against their eardrums. There was no doubt about it. The Pentroskys were gone. Maybe they just went away for a little while and haven't really left their furniture yet, Maddie hopefully said. Maddie was beginning to wonder how she could bear the hard fact that Wanda had actually gone, and that she might never be able to make amends. Well, said Peggy, let's see if the door's open. They cautiously turned the knob of the front door. It opened easily, for it was a light thing and looked as though it furnished but frail protection against the cold winds that blew up here in winter time. The little square room that the door opened into was empty. There was absolutely nothing left in it, and in the corner a closet with its door wide open. It was empty too. Maddie wondered what it had held before the Pentroskys moved out, and she thought of Wanda saying, "Sure, 100 dresses all lined up in my closet." Well, anyway, real and imaginary dresses alike were gone. The Pentroskys were gone. And now, how could she and Peggy tell Wanda anything? Maybe the teacher knew where she had moved to. Maybe Old Man Svensson knew. They might knock on his door and ask on the way down. Or the post office might know. If they wrote a letter, Wanda might get it because the post office might forward it. Feeling very downcast and discouraged, the girls closed the door and started for home. Coming down the road, way off in the distance, through the drizzle, they could see water of the bay, gray and cold. Do you suppose there was their cat? Do you think they forgot her? Asked Peggy. But the cat wasn't anywhere around now, and as the girls turned the bend, they saw her crouching under the dilapidated wood chair in the front of Old Man Svenson's house. So perhaps the cat belonged to him. They lost their courage about knocking on his door and asking where the Petronskis moved to. Anyway, thank goodness. Here was Old Man Svensson himself coming up the road. Everything about Svensson was yellow. His house, his cat, his trousers, his drooping mustache, his tangled hair, his hound loping behind him, and the long streams of tobacco juice he expertly shot from behind his scattered yellow teeth. The two girls drew over to the side of the path as they hurried by. Where they were a good ways past, they stopped. "Hey, Mr. Svensson," Peggy yelled. "Where did the Petronskis move?" Old Man Svensson turned around but said nothing. Finally, he did answer, but his words were unintelligible, and the two girls turned and ran down the hill as fast as they could. Old Man Svensson looked after them for a moment and then went on up the hill, muttering to himself and scratching his head. When they were back down on Oliver Street again, the girls stopped running. They still felt disconsolate. Maddie wondered if she were going to be unhappy about Wanda and the 100 Dresses forever. Nothing would ever seem good to hear again, because just when she thought about enjoying something, like going for a hike with Peggy to look for blueberries or sliding down Barley Hill, she'd slumped right smack dab in the face and thought about Wanda Petrovsky and how she moved away. "Well, anyway," said Peggy, "she's gone now, so what can we do? Besides, when I was asking about her and all those 100 Dresses, she probably was getting good ideas for her drawings. She might not even have won her own contest otherwise. She might not even have won it." Maddie carefully turned this idea over in her head, for if there were anything in it, she would not have to feel so bad. But that night she could not sleep. She thought about Wanda and her faded blue dress and her little house she had lived in, and Old Man Svensson living a few steps away, and she thought of glowing pictures of those 100 dresses she made, all lined up in the classroom. At last, Maddie sat up in bed and pressed her forehead tight with her hands and really thought. This was the hardest thinking she had ever done. After a long, long time, she reached an important conclusion. She was never going to stand by and say nothing again. If she ever heard anybody picking on someone because they were funny looking or because they had strange names, she'd speak up, even if it meant losing Peggy's friendship. She had no way in making things right with Wanda, but from now on she would never make anybody else feel so unhappy again. Finally, all tired out, Maddie fell asleep. The end of chapter 6.